Hey everybody, how's it going? I am your host Adrian, coming to you almost live from lovely Petaluma, California, here in Studio MC2. The Geekinator is a proud member of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Do feel free to head on over to techpodcast.com. Check out all the other technology-related shows over there as well. I'd like to encourage everybody to visit us online over at quickshrift.com. Please do subscribe to the show if you have not already done so. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to the show using the link up above the video, or if you want to use your podcatcher of choice or mobile device of choice, in the show notes of every episode, I have a subscribe heading, and there are links that allow you to subscribe to an OGG Vorbis feed or an MP3 feed or a standard def and a high def H.264 feed, the video feeds respectively. You can use those links to subscribe in YouTube or in Downcast or, pretty much any podcasting application out there. You can use those links to subscribe. Also, in addition, the Geekinator is now available on Stitcher Radio. That's over at Stitcher.com. If any of you in the audience are Stitcher audience members, you can now catch the show over on Stitcher Radio. Let's go ahead and get into the cool links and stuff that I found for this episode. Over at eWeek, this is kind of a public service announcement. Evernote cloud storage service warns users of password breach. They've been hacked. If you are an Evernote user, if you have not already done so, please update your Evernote application and change your password. It's very important that you do so. No user data was lost other than email addresses. The passwords are stored as a one-way hash with salt. So, it's very unlikely that your passwords will ever become known. But with that being said, out of an abundance of caution, they said in the email that they sent out, I'm an Evernote user, so I went through this as well. Out of an abundance of caution, they are having everyone change their passwords. From autos.americaonline.com or AOL.com, Lamborghini is unveiling a $3.9 million Veneno supercar. They have a picture of it here on the website. This thing looks awesome. Now, I know we're not a car show or anything of that nature, but I'm a geek, right? And geeks like, fast cars, right? Pretty neat. This thing is awesome. I just looking at it, I'm like, wow, I so want one of these. I'll never be able to afford one. They're only going to build like 3 of them or 4 of them or something like that. But still, definitely check it out if you haven't already seen it. From PCMag.com, Mars mission may use a poop shield to block cosmic rays. What? The astronauts selected for an ambitious voyage to Mars could wind up looking out for number 1 through the clever, if stomach-churning, use of number 2. Exposure to radiation from cosmic rays is a big concern for the Inspiration Mars Foundation team planning the 2018 Inspiration Mars mission announced last week, but they've got a possible solution. Have the 2-person crew use their own feces to help block the harmful rays. It's a little queasy sounding, but there's no place for that material to go, and it makes great radiation shielding, says Tabor McCallum, the Inspiration Mars Foundation Chief Technology Officer. So solid and liquid human waste, as well as food and water, could be stored in bags used to line the Mars capsule. It turns out that the liquid, like water, is a better shield than metal because it's got more nuclei per volume, the key to blocking cosmic radiation. So, who would have thunk? Very interesting, nonetheless. Over at Engadget, Curiosity Rover is having some problems, and late last week, it's experienced a corrupt flash issue. We're not really sure what's going on computer A. They switched it over to computer B, withheld all the science gathering for the time being. The Engadget article here says that they are leaving safe mode, but they're still in Martian limbo. They're still trying to figure out if they can use computer A for the new backup computer and just continue on with computer B, or if they're going to flip back over to computer A, or what they're going to do. But within a couple of days, they'll have it worked out. Kind of unfortunate. Sometimes stuff like this just happens. From Make over at makesign.com on their blog, they have a nice how-to how to make an LED VU-Meter necktie. So pretty interesting. Basically, the tie, it's a tie. It's fit with a microphone at the knot. There's a row of RGB pixels down the front and a sew-on Flora microcontroller on the back. And basically what it does is it monitors the surroundings, and the LEDs are used as an LED VU meter. It's pretty neat. So definitely check it out. From Hackaday, they have an article here, RPi Printer Server for your 3D printer. Want to run your 3D printer without your laptop attached? Looking to make your hackerspace printer network accessible? Octoprint aims to make a 3D print server for the Raspberry Pi. The open source Python project allows you to upload and manage G-code files on the Raspberry Pi. You can then select files that you want to print and get basic statistics before running the printer. Information including temperature can be reported back via the UI, and arbitrary G-code commands can be run for setup and testing. Pretty neat. From Ars Technica, why does automated testing keep failing at my company? This is from their technology lab / information technology section. I found this to be very interesting. I'm a software developer. The company I work at has a QA department where they do a fair amount of automated testing. And the question does prompt, the concern for potentially some discussion. So a user here wants to implement automated testing at his company. The problem he's having is he's tried several times before and has failed every time. He basically says everybody gets excited for the first month or two, then several months in, people simply stop doing it. Now, that seems like the right time to try bringing automated testing back into the workplace. So, there's, a multitude of ways of doing it. You can, in fact, have, and I recommend you should have a dedicated department to QA testing that does nothing but tend to the tests and monitoring the tests and running the tests and basically doing quality assurance. There's a fair amount of work that goes into automated testing, much more than people realize, and you really need to have dedicated resources to do that. Expecting your developers to do that, while it's a noble cause and it seems reasonable to say poo-poo for them not doing QA testing, that really needs to be in the hands of somebody who has not written the code and is not involved in the code to do the testing. So definitely, it's a pretty interesting write-up. Definitely check it out, especially if you're in software development or you do any QA type work. From Engadget, switched on a 4K in the road, or a fork in the road, as they say. This is a nice write-up. Starts off here. The past decade has now seen at least 3 industry-wide technologies vie for the future of television: HD, 3D, and now 4K, which is otherwise called Ultra High Def, or UHD. The first of these, HD, represented a massive change for television that affected nearly every aspect of the TV experience, from how it was captured to how it was consumed. And in many ways, in consumer camcorders, we're just now catching up to the quality that you get with HD. Like, for example, here on the Geekinator and my other sister show, Linux Newslog, it wasn't until just recently that I even started recording in HD, and I still don't make the 1080p HD files really all that available. I consider that my mastering format. And then what I release to the public is 720p, mainly because mostly you're going to be watching it on a mobile device that doesn't actually have HD resolution, or you're going to be watching it on a computer screen, or something of that nature. If you're on a laptop, most for web video, 720p is like really the sweet spot right now, and I can't envision doing 1080 until I can actually capture at higher than 1080 resolution, like 2K or something of that nature, or capture 1080 at a much, much higher quality. Most consumer camcorders, like the one I have, captures AVC HD. It's 1080 at 24 megabits per second, which is great if you don't edit it. But as soon as you edit it and chop it up and, re-encode it back out to 1080, you lose a lot of quality. 1080 at 24 megabits per second, it's not a super high, it's not what I would consider I consider that to be endpoint distribution quality, not like it's going to go on a Blu-ray unedited or something. But as soon as you start editing it, that is not enough resolution. It's enough resolution. It's not enough quality. So until I can either capture 1080 at a much higher bit rate with much less compression artifacts, or I can capture at a higher resolution, I don't foresee doing 1080 on the web anytime soon. Anyway, so this talks about that 1080p HD. A decade later, it's nearly impossible to purchase a TV that does not support high definition. The second, 3D, was a mixed bag. Personally, I'm kind of poo-poo on 3D in the home. I think it's okay for theaters if you're willing to pay that $3+ premium to see a 3D HD movie, but it really has to be a movie where they expected and they planned to do the HD really, really well. There are movies that are done in 3D that are terrible. And there are movies like Avatar or Prometheus where the 3D or Avengers was relatively good 3D. I wouldn't call it very good, but it was relatively good 3D. There are movies out there that would look spectacular in 3D. I would definitely pay a premium to see those in 3D. But I'm not going to pay a premium to see those in 3D in the home. To me, that doesn't make sense. The fourth one, 4K or ultra high definition, or the third one, I should say, is ultra high definition. The question then is, which of these paths, if either 4K, will follow? HD, 3D, and 4K all have sought to overcome high prices and a dearth of optimized content, counting on the pull of consumer demand. Indeed, once the HD TVs became more affordable, consumers flocked to them. However, two factors came into play beyond the increased resolution. First, the government's push to digital helped convince broadcasters to offer digital programming. And as they made that transition, they added HD. Second, the TVs were transitioned to HD, but they were also migrating to flat panel technologies. So while many early HD buyers chose bulky rear projection sets to save money, many of the early flat panel TVs were sold as less expensive ED TVs, which were enhanced definition televisions. I would prefer to see 4K be the next standard, but in my opinion, there is a lot of HD, and I'm using air quotes here for those of you who are listening and not watching, HD that is actually not that great. There's a lot of HD out there that is not captured at a high enough quality to really truly call it HD. And even in movie land, when you get a movie in HD, have any of you seen any of the newer Christopher Nolan Batman movies, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, where he shot IMAX footage, and on the Blu-ray, that IMAX footage at the full 16:9 aspect ratio, where he scanned in that 70 millimeter film at like 8K, and then scaled it down to the 1080p 1920 by 1080 resolution of Blu-ray. That looks amazing. Whenever you see that really ultra high resolution scaled down to 1080, it looks amazing. It tells you that 35 millimeter film cannot really do 1080 that well. There's not that much resolution because there is a distinct difference when you watch that. If you have a good Blu-ray player and a good HD TV and you're connecting via HDMI and you're getting the full signal quality to your TV and actually displaying 1080 progressive from Blu-ray, the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises both have what I call reference quality picture. And particularly in the scenes that are shot in IMAX, when it switches between the IMAX sourced footage and the 35 millimeter film sourced footage, the picture quality, and it's not just because it's cropped, the picture quality changes. And maybe some people don't see it. Maybe you actually have to. I did spend a good chunk of money on my HD TV when I bought it. And maybe this just depends on, the combination of your player and your HD TV and how it's connected and all that other stuff. But when I see that, I notice a dramatic difference between IMAX sourced footage, 70 millimeter film sourced footage scanned in at 8,000 pixels horizontally, as opposed to 35 millimeter film footage scanned in at 2K or 4K or whatever their mastering format was, which is then put onto HD, which is just 1080p, 1920 by 1080. The picture quality between those two is dramatic. So I personally, if you're going to, use a source that can actually make 1080p look good, and do everything you can to do that. And two, higher resolution 4K will look that much better. I would rather have the higher resolution. You don't need more resolution when you go from one resolution point to another resolution point, and you can't tell the difference. If you can tell the difference, then you can benefit from that higher resolution. So anyway, same thing with the source material. Going from 35 millimeter film to IMAX 70 millimeter film on Blu-ray, huge difference in picture quality. Movies shot with the new digital cinema cameras, the picture quality is quite good, especially on the newer ones, particularly when they're catching it like 4K, 2K to 4K resolution range. On Blu-ray, those look fairly well. They've solved a lot of the dynamic range problems and that sort of thing. So anyway, long story short, definitely, personally, I would prefer to see 4K in the future. But, in my opinion, a lot of source material doesn't even do 1080 justice, or standard HD is what they call it, justice. From Uber Gizmo, the Samsung Galaxy S4 specs have been leaked. That's right. I'm not going to go through all of them because we're a little short on time here. I'm running late, but it's going to have an Exynos Octa 5410 CPU, chugging along at 1.8 gigahertz of Power VR SGX 544 MP GPU, 2 gigs of RAM, and basically a 4.99 inch or 5 inch full HD display with a 13 megapixel camera. An Android 4.2. So anyway, that will do it for this edition of The Geekinator. As always, everything we've talked about is linked up in the show notes. If you enjoy me ranting and raving and all that other stuff, by all means, definitely shoot me an email, geekinator@quicksurf.com, if you want to flame me or tell me to keep doing what I'm doing, or if you just want to send show links my way and say, hey, check this out, maybe include it on a show. Geekinator@quicksurf.com. Also, you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and pretty much everywhere else. I have all the links to that up in the show notes as well. So I'll see all of you on the next episode. See you then. Bye.